the Bee Gees and Staying Alive. All this week we're going to be looking at what goes on at Santa Pod. Half in Northamptonshire, half in Bedfordshire. We've got the good bit. We took tame racing driver from Amazon Prime's the Grand Tour, Abbie Eaton, over there. Talk all about drag racing, something she's never done. No danger they're going to forget the words to that one. That's The Weeknd and Daft Punk, and I feel it coming. Now, we're firm believers here that Northamptonshire is the home of motorsport, but before you think it's all about Formula One or superbikes, we're also the home of British drag racing, because if you go east a bit down the A45 past Rushden Lakes before taking the back lanes and getting dangerously close to the Bedfordshire border, you'll arrive at a former RAF and United States Army Air Force base, once known as RAF Poddington. We were at Santa Pod, as it's been known since 1966, to speak to professional racing driver Abbie Eaton. You might know her as the test driver from Amazon's The Grand Tour. But since we were at a drag strip and we had the track manager Dave Warren to teach us a thing or two, it would have been rude not to. And if you're having a fit of apoplexy that Pod, as it's known to racers and enthusiasts alike, is in Bedfordshire, we asked Dave, the track manager, for its official location.
We'll be quite happy to be classed as Northamptonshire, as half of us is in Northampton.
Now, I don't know anything about drag racing, but we're standing at the end of a long, straight bit of tarmac, basically.
Yep, so where we're at the moment is what we call the bleach boxes. So you'll have the cars, they'll come around here, they'll do a burnout and lay some hot stripes of rubber, and then they'll back up and then they'll launch down the quarter-mile drag strip. We've been racing here since 1966, and we have top fuel dragsters that will accelerate 0 to 100 mile per hour in 0.8 of a second.
Oh my word!
Yep, so they're the fastest accelerating cars on the planet, or vehicle on the planet. There'll be no vehicle that will out-accelerate a top fuel dragster. They will even accelerate the fighter jets and everything. So
seriously?
Seriously, yep. So the drivers will experience 4 to 5 Gs of acceleration on launch, and by the 8th mile they'll hopefully be travelling at 270 mile per hour, and they'll be doing that in 3 seconds, and 1,000 feet in 3.8 seconds at 318 mile per hour.
Just giving me goosebumps just thinking about it. That's quick.
It is. Our cars produce over 10,000 brake horsepower, we generally say. They actually put a monitor on one of the cars out in America, and they actually experience 11,100 brake horsepower. So, yes, very powerful cars.
I guess you do it for the thrill, do you?
Certainly do. You can't be going that fast in that short space of time. So, yeah, we do a lot of school visits as well. We've got a show car, and the kids are always amazed by it.
Yeah, I bet. So tell me why you would put rubber down. Is that just to get you some accelerations to start with?
Yeah, so basically what we do is we prepare the track, and the track is very sticky when you walk on it during the actual race event. But you also need to heat the tyres up, lay some fresh rubber, so you can actually put all that power to the ground. Generally, there'll be no tarmac in the world that will be able to withhold that power without the preparation. So we've now moved to concrete last year, which has given us some very good results.
How often are there meetings here?
We run from pretty much the March right through to October every single weekend. This weekend we just had the Festival of Power, which hopefully some of your listeners would have come to and enjoyed themselves. And then we've got the main event, which is at the last bank holiday in May. So if you're not doing anything, come and look on our website and come and experience it. You won't be disappointed.
So who does drag racing? Are they famous drivers?
Yeah, well, you could say we have famous drivers. We also have some very good women drivers as well. The current FIA European Top Fuel Champion is a lady from Finland called Eatom. So women do very well in drag racing. They're working on the crewing as well as doing the crew chiefing as well. So yeah, we do like having women involved.
That's really good to hear, because you know F1 dragging their heels a little bit on that, aren't they?
We broke these barriers in the 70s. We had a racer in America called Shirley Muldowney that actually won the NHRA championship. So we broke the barriers of women in motorsport years ago.
When did you get involved?
I got involved. My dad started racing in '97, so I was 12 years old then. I started racing myself when I was 16. So my current best on this track is 8.2 at 176 mile per hour, and now it's led into being a full-time job, because unfortunately I got made redundant at the time, so I couldn't afford to do the racing, but now it's led into better things with me working here full-time.
Is it expensive?
Racing's very expensive, unfortunately. So a top fuel drags, for every time that car goes down the track, it's about £3,500 if you don't break anything, and it requires a complete strip down and rebuild. You'll have a crew of about 10 people that will do that for you. So yes, it is expensive, but that's the form Formula One of our sport. You can get involved in your Ford here. So,
that's good.
Yeah, so you can get involved at the very beginning and actually race against other people. We have bracket racing where you'll actually dial your own time. So you'd say that my Ford here is going to do 19 seconds and my Mustang here is going to do 12 seconds. And then what will actually happen is you'll leave before me and I've got to catch you and not break out at the end of the track. So.
Okay, I understand. Now, I drive like an old lady. I am quite risk averse.
You're still welcome.
So, any tips?
Yeah, take it nice and easy to start off with, and then build yourself up. But we also do run what you brung events here, so you can actually pay your money at the gate, sign on, and actually run your car down the track. We are the cheapest form of getting involved in our motorsport. So Silverstone, obviously, they'll have their track days. Ours is nice and cheap.
Luckily, I've got a professional racing driver with me, so hopefully I'll get a few tips from her.
I'm sure she'll be able to teach you a thing or two.
Yep, Abbie Eaton, who we will take down that drag strip later on in the week. I have a go as well. Producer John does too. I'm not going to let him live it down, that I was quicker than he was. Shh, don't shake your head. Day 2 of our trip to Santa Pod. Yesterday you heard from Pod's track manager Dave Warren, who told us about his role and also the best way to get your car down a drag strip in the fastest possible time. And it turns out that whether you're more Fiesta than Ferrari, or even Corsa rather than Corvette, you can pay your 25 quid and still have a go yourself. But before I was let loose on the track's hallowed tarmac, or concrete as it is now, there was one person we went there to speak to. If you've watched Amazon's The Grand Tour with Clarkson, Hammond and May, you'll know her as the test driver / tame racing driver, Abbie Eaton. It turns out she also lives in Northampton, so of course we had to talk to her. But what's it like working with Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May?
It's a lot of fun, I'm very kind of privileged to drive all the things that I get involved in on the show, and working with the boys that I've kind of grown up watching is it's a real dream come true.
Now, I bet you get asked this all the time, but I would be terrified to work with them because they're 3 old men. Sorry, and you're quite a young woman. Are they difficult to work with?
No, do you know what? They've been really welcoming, and you see they're quite big personalities on the TV, more so Jeremy, but actually they all welcome me with open arms, and they made me feel very comfortable from the off. And I'm a gobby northern bird from the heart, which is very similar to I think Jeremy was about half an hour away from me, from where he's originally born. So we get on very well. We're kind of male-female version of each other.
You get to travel the world as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I haven't been away too much with them, but I got to go to Azerbaijan in this series, and also Sweden, so I was able to race Jeremy on an ice lake out in Sweden. So yeah, it's been a good crack, and I hope that they find a way to have me back for the next season.
So how did you get the job in the first place?
Basically, I got an email through, and it basically said, do you want to come down to the track and we want to see what you like and see what you like on camera and so on. And to start off with, I thought this is definitely a friend of mine winding me up, but I thought I'll go along with it just to kind of see how it plays out. And obviously it ended up being legit, and kind of went down to the track, and there'd been some lap times that had been set, and it was kind of try and beat them or get as close as you can to them. And ended up doing pretty well, and they asked me back and gave me the job. So yeah.
When did you get involved with racing?
So I started when I was 10 years old, so I started in go-karts, but my dad had actually raced ever since I was little. So my first time at a racetrack, I was 2 months old. So I've grown up around it, I've got oil and petrol in my veins, so it was going to happen at some point. And 17 years later, here we are.
We're hearing that women are very involved in drag racing, not quite so much in other forms of racing yet. So are you kind of blazing a trail?
I think there's a few of us that are kind of coming into it now a little bit more, maybe a little bit higher profile, but to be honest, the difference from when I started in karting to now, there are so much more women coming into a sport from an early age, which is nice to see. And I don't particularly think it's because there's been any maybe role models. We haven't had anyone apart from Susie Wolff as the test driver in F1, but I just think it's a lot more accessible, and people realise actually you can get involved, and it doesn't matter if you're a female or not. So it's definitely positive to see, but we just need to have more girls coming into it to have a higher chance of kind of reaching the higher levels of motorsport.
How long is it going to be before there's an F1 driver who's a female?
I think probably in the next 5-10 years there's probably going to be a female F1 driver. I just hope that she's good enough to be on it. There's been times in the past where there's been females that have been put in the spotlight purely for a PR stunt, and it kind of gives women in motorsport a bad name. So I'd love to see a decent, quick female up in F1 soon.
Do you fancy it?
F1 for me is not my route. You know, I like racing tin tops, GT cars, so stuff like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if someone offered me a go, obviously I'd bite the hand off to take it. But yeah, I prefer having a roof over my head.
What did you do with your first win, with the money that you got from your first win?
So really, when you start in motorsport, especially with club level, you don't actually win any money back from it, and it's just more kind of having the accolade on your CV, if you like. To be able to kind of compete in motorsport, as Dave previously said, kind of the drag racing stuff is fairly cheap to get started in. On flip side of that, with kind of track-based stuff, you know, if you want to win, let's say 50 grand, or there's a 50 grand prize at the end of it, you're probably looking at spending 300 grand on the season. So it's not particularly about the prize money until you get up to the big, you know, championships and so on. Or if you race for a manufacturer, then they pay you your wages through the year and you get bonuses if you win. So I've yet to earn money out of motorsport from that point of view.
Did you drive a fancy motor yourself, though?
I've got a BMW 1 Series, so it's a diesel. It cost me no money to run. It's got heated seats, and that's all I care, because I spend my life on the motorway. So I would be very sad if I could see my fuel needle going down. And
any points on the licence?
Maybe 3, possibly. Yeah, I've got 1 speeding ticket on my licence, which is my fault. It was 7 o'clock in the morning and I was late for work on a Sunday, so thank you to that guy who got me.
So as I was saying to Dave, I'm a bit of an old lady driver. I'm quite risk averse. So what would you say to me before we go down that drag strip?
Just don't worry about it. You know, the accelerator works both ways. If you feel like you're going too fast and it's putting you off, just slow down a little bit. Having said that, if you've got me or Dave sat next to you, we're going to push you on and tell you to crack on.
Great. Okay, looking forward to it. Thanks, Abbie. That's Abbie Eaton, and after I spoke to her, Dave, the track manager, introduced me to Holly Marshall, who at the age of 18 has just had to retire from drag racing as a junior. So you can hear from her tomorrow, find out how she got into racing at an early age. Jack Savaretti and What More Can I Do? Hello, Tea Gardeners Question Time, Kathy Clugston and Jim and Annette, who are on their way to Cambridge. Nice to have your company. We're going back to Santa Pod now, where we've been all this week to meet the Grand Tour's test driver, Abbie Eaton. Now, after we spoke to Dave Warren, who's the track manager, and to Abbie herself, Dave introduced us to a retired drag racer. But she wasn't what we expected, because at almost the age of 18, Holly Marshall has had to stop racing because she's too old for her class. She raced in Junior Dragsters, which is a class open to 8 to 17-year-olds, but how did she get into it in the first place?
Not quite. I'm 18 at the end of this year, and you can only race Junior Dragsters until the age of 18. But because we had already sold the car and things, we just decided that this would be my last kind of year in drag racing.
How did you get involved in the first place?
Both my mum and my dad are heavily involved in drag racing. My mum used to race in a class called Super Modified, and my dad also ran the car once I was born. And my dad's been coming to Santa Pod since like the 70s, and he's worked here for near on 30 years now. So it's kind of a natural progression that have been involved my whole life. And been involved with the juniors, and as it's kind of, the natural progression of things.
How old were you when you first drove a dragster then?
I was 10 years old when I got my licence. So it's my 8th year of racing. Yeah, but you can start juniors from the age of 8, but it's a restricted class. You can't go like 80 miles an hour from the get-go. But we do run 8-year-olds at around 35 to 40 miles per hour over the 8th mile.
How do you get a licence then?
All you have to do really is come over to the track. There's only one track, unfortunately, that has a licence left in the UK, which is here at Santa Pod. But all you have to do is come along, and we have cars that you can hire out, and just say, I want to, license in a junior, and my dad, Ian, basically watches the runs. They're called observe runs, to see that you can control the car, and that you're, well in control and are safe. And as long as you've done 3 to 4 runs in a controlled manner, you apply for your licence at Motorsport UK, and then you can get your licence.
What was your first race like?
My first race? Oh, I don't know if I can remember that. My first race was probably really scary, and I don't think I won it or anything like that. But it's invigorating, I think the word would be. It's definitely something that's indescribable to somebody who hasn't experienced it. unlike anything else you could ever describe. It's a lot of adrenaline, definitely.
I've just taken that Ford Fiesta down the strip. I managed to get it at 75 miles an hour by the time we were down the end. And I keep saying I'm a proper old lady driver. I'm risk averse. But it's quite exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting. I think the fastest I've ever been is 85 miles per hour in my little dragster. And I think it feels a lot faster in my little thing that's, close to the ground. But you get hooked on it. It's like I said, something like you can't ever describe, and you get hooked on the speed and not just winning, because the winning doesn't even matter, because it's so addictive,
So what are you wearing when you get in your dragster? I guess there's all kinds of safety gear, isn't there?
Yeah, we have to wear specified safety gear. I have to wear a fire suit, race protective, racing shoes, fire protective shoes. Things called arm restraints, which basically they clip onto my seatbelts and they stop my arms from going above my roll cage. So if anything was to happen, a neck brace which works. Well, like it kind of says, a neck brace stops my head from moving too much, and then a helmet as well, and gloves, which is all for fire protection and if anything was to happen on track.
That's a lot of gear to be wearing.
It is indeed, but drag racing is one of the safest and dangerous sports there is. It's a dangerous sport, but with all the safety gear and that we have, it makes it a very safe sport. Well, nothing's ever happened to me, touch wood, and and everything we have is to make it safer for us. And anything that's ever happened, generally people are always okay because of the safety gear we use.
Are there a lot of girls involved?
Oh, absolutely. In the class that I previously ran in junior dragster, probably half to over half of the people in the class are girls. We have junior drag bike, which is the same but on bikes, and there's 2 to 3 girls in there out of probably 10, maybe more than that. And it's a very equal sport. Unlike things like F1, Formula Renault, anything like that, it's quite equal. I think we had at one of our dinner dances, the new CEO of Motorsport UK came down, and he was saying how it is the most equal sport that they have in terms of licence holders for male and female, and Top Fuel, which is the highest rank of drag racing, is quite often won by a lady. We have 3 ladies running this year in the European Championship, and it's much bigger sport in America, and is quite often won and dominated by the female league.
It's fantastic, isn't it? They say that female reactions are quicker, and that's what you need here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in the class that I ran in junior dragster, the whole qualifying aspect of it is done on reaction times. So generally, if you want the number 1 spot in qualifying, you'd need a reaction time of about 0.005 or so.
Seriously?
Yeah. If you were to look at something like the main event, which is one of the biggest events that we hold, if you were to look at a qualifying list of something like that, if you were to get maybe a 0.01 of a second reaction time, you might be 15th or something. It's a really difficult sport. You kind of it's something you learn to do. You learn to preempt things and do things like that. But yeah, you have to be really on your game.
So what's the future? What are you going to do next?
That's something I'm not entirely sure yet. We've looked into quite a few different avenues of cars, bikes and other things like that. And for the future of this year, definitely, I'm just going to be working on track and extending my knowledge of track preparation and rules and regulations, things like that. But after that, I'm quite interested in bike racing. It's something that's I've never really considered, but it does interest me a lot. But there's so many different avenues in drag racing. There's so many things I could do. So we're not sure yet.
Well, listen, when you're world champion, I'll come back and talk to you, okay?
Might be well, but thanks.
Holly Marshall, who's just retired from junior drag racing, we spoke to her dad straight afterwards, and he was telling us that he's kind of put some packages together for her to move up into the adult drag classes, and 60 grand, anybody? And a reaction time of 5,000th of a second. Whew. It's our last trip to Santa Pod today, and what started out as an idea to meet friend to Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May, and famous racing driver in her very own right, Abbie Eaton, turned into a ride in a Ford Mustang and a chat with 2 people who live and breathe drag racing. Because after we met with Dave Warren, Santa Pod's track manager, and former junior drag racer Holly Marshall, it was time to see what you can get out of a diesel Fiesta. Under the expert guidance of Dave, of course.
So you've just done your burnout, you're moving forward now, so if you want to start slowing down, right, and you're just coming up to the start line, so what you're going to do is you're going to come to a stop as you get into pre-stage, and what you'd normally do is you'll wait for your other competitor to light up their pre-stage. So now you're going to want to move forward another 6 inches. There you go. And then that's be your 2 lights lit up on the top of the Christmas tree.
Right.
The other competitor now would light up their other stage light, and then you'll have 3 amber lights come all on at once, and that's when you want to react. They generally say women have better reactions than men.
Okay.
So there you go, your green.
Here we go.
I thought you said you was an old lady driver.
I'm not even going to get into 5th by the time we get to the end.
There you go, we're going across at about 60 miles per hour.
I didn't think that was too bad. For, like I say, an old lady driver.
There you go, that was a good start. You want to have another go?
Yeah. How was that, Abby?
Terrifying. No, it wasn't really. Very good. You can use more of the revs though. Yeah, you don't need to get up to like 6th gear. Just use all the revs in each of the gears.
So as Abby said, you want to be taking it to about 4,500 revs.
Okay. But as an ordinary driver, that's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because by the time you get up to revs like that, your car's probably shouting at you to change gear. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Well, what you'd have is, if this was your full-blown race car, you'd have a dyno sheet which will tell you where your power's running out and your torque's running out, so you'd adjust it to suit. There you go, so we'll go for another go.
Here we go. Pedal to the metal. That's better.
There you go, that was about 75 miles per hour that time.
See, now that was quite exciting.
That was a lot better.
Told you I was an old lady driver though, didn't I?
So what should we do? Get down to the bottom and see what Abby can get out of this scale? So there you go, we've just come into the pre-stage and just moving forward into the stage light, so we're ready whenever you are to go.
Ooh, wheel spin, nice. Come on, come on, come on.
We all lean forward.
We'll jump at the same time, we'll hop our way there a bit quicker.
Ah, I was going quicker.
Damn, we need to try again. Good stuff. It kind of, I mean, obviously we're in something that's fairly steady and it's going to be completely different when you're in something that's full blown, but yeah, it seems wider than it looks actually when
Yeah,
you're doing it.
so with drag racing we're considered perfectionists, so even when you've just run your PB you're never happy, you're looking to improve that extra little bit so you can get that better time and speed.
I guess because it is so kind of down to the milliseconds, it's just tiny little mistakes here and there that can cost you massively at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had a competition obviously this weekend, and you can what's called win on a whole shot. So basically, where you'd run the slower time, but actually get to the finishing line first and win the race because you've reacted to the tree quicker. And as I said, women are generally meant to have quicker reactions, so we do see quite a few women racing in America. So we've had you a quick warm up in the Ford Fiesta. Should we go with the Mustang?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Is it won or lost on a 60-foot time, Dave?
More your reaction time to the green light actually coming on. So from the amber lights going to the green light coming on is 0.4 of a second. So we then zero that down on the computer. So you want to be about 0.03 of a second reacting to the tree. So you've got to have good reactions.
So I just want to point out that out of producer John, Abbie Eaton, professional racing driver, I was the fastest in that particular car. Mustang next though.